Hello YouTube. Hey, I got the PD Decoy, the newer style, ordered and got it in. And so I thought we'd open it up, take a quick look at it, and maybe put it through its paces, load it up with a little bit of load, see how the voltage regulation works, see how easy it is to use. So again, I'm gonna have to add some wires to it, but let's take a look at what we got here. Looks a little easier to use. Looks like there's a little tape, cap 10 tape over the switches. Interesting. Let me get that off. So probably to prevent during reflowing the board, probably keeps it from getting the vapors in there and mess with the switch. So they don't pull it off apparently. So that's up to us. So let's get that off. Okay. Step one. And right away, no tiny jumpers to deal with. Got some switches here. Kind of small, but they'll do. And you've got a legend on the back. So that's very helpful that I can see. Take a look on the camera here and see what you guys are able to see. You've got a legend on the back telling you where to put the switches for what voltage. And there's the switches. And so I'm hopeful that's going to work real well. I'm going to go ahead and solder a couple wires on it. So I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, I'm back. And I've juggled things around where you can see I've got our load that we tested out that we got not long ago. Put a couple little wires on, hooked it up to the load. Got my cable from my 65-watt power adapter for PD power for my HSO1 soldering iron. On the bottom, you have your description here. Let's see what we can see here. And it says S1 and S2 in the on position for 5 volts. So that's what I've done. So let's hook it up and see what we have. I've got this set up. I don't have it loaded, but I've got it set up for 100 milliamps. Plug it in. And we're getting 5.230 volts. So my question becomes, let me prop this up a little bit and see if maybe that helps. Try to get this to see on the camera a little better. Maybe we can prop this up a little bit more, something like that. There we go. So we're 5.23 volts. So let's put 100 milliamp load on this rascal and see what happens. Okay, 5.22. So it didn't drop too much. Now I'm going to let that sit a second. I'm going to grab my thermal camera. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with the thermal camera. Let's take a look at this thing. Nothing seems to be getting warm at all. Now, this particular unit, I couldn't find where it said what it's rated for, but identical ones all over AliExpress say they're good for 100 watts. Seems like a lot of wattage. We're looking pretty good there. Let's turn up the load a little. Let's turn off the load. And let's go half an amp. Okay, let's load it up with that. See if we get any temperature changes. Now my voltage dropped to 5.18, so it's regulating pretty well. I'd say that's pretty good. See if we get over here where you can actually see my thermal camera. You can. And you can see the board is really not seeing anything warming up yet. So that's good. So let's let that rip for a little bit and see if we get anything getting warmed up. So that is you see here, it's 2.558 watts that we're pulling. And I don't see anything even starting to warm up. It's still cold as could be. Get the glare off of there. So why don't we take and unload it, and let's turn this load up to an amp. That'll be 5 watts. So let's see what happens. Should be around 5 watts. And it's 5.135 watts. Pulling an amp. Let's see what happens. If we see anything getting warm. The voltage is running 5.12. So we brought down a little bit, but it's still regulating above 5 volts. Now I see some things here, but that's actually the reflection off of the metal here. That's not actually getting warm. Well, she seems to be doing pretty good. So let's take the load off. Let's turn the load up to 3 amps. It's quite a bit of power to pull through this thing. See what happens. My fan comes on and we've overloaded it. No, maybe not. Maybe I misread that. Yeah, I misread it. Thought it was saying 1, it said 4. 4.92, so we're below 5 volts at this point. Now, that could be because I've got awful small wires on here, but they're not really warming up. I am seeing some heat now. But this heat is, bear in mind, just a few degrees above room temperature, so we're not really heating up yet. So 33, around 33 degrees C is about as warm as anything's getting. And that's 14 watts. All right, well, let's go a little bit more. Let's go 5. It's going to be 25 watts. And let's see what happens. The voltage has gone to, now we've overloaded, 2.7. So I don't like that. So 5 amps is not going to cut it. So let's see if we can get 4 out of it. No, that drops me to 2.91 volts. That's not going to work. We had it on 3 before. 4.92 volts. So 3 is okay. Let's try 3.5. Nope. 3.2. 3.2, it can give you 4.9 volts. It's 15 watts. So looks like to me around 15 watts is all you want to put it at. And I'm waiting to see how much this thing gets, how hot this thing gets. Running about 33 degrees C is the hottest spot. How well you can see that. I mean, there's areas that are getting warmth in them, but if you look here, the max scale is 33 degrees on my scale, so we're not really. So interesting. Okay, well, let's shut her off. So at 5 volts, you don't want to pull above about 3 amps. That's probably way more than you need to be pulling, but let's drop her back down to 100 milliamps, and let's try a different voltage. So give me just a second. Get my screwdriver here. Let's look at the bottom. Why don't we try, what happens at 20 volts? S2 and S3 need to be on. Okay, this should be 20 volts here. So I'm getting 20.3. And let's load it. Pretty much kept 20.29 volts. Okay, so let's take the amperage up. Let's try half an amp. 20.24. Let's see what we get temperature wise. Now we're starting to get some temperature. Yeah, we're getting some 45 degrees C temperatures now. Now we're starting to see some temperatures. Pulling 10 watts out of it. Yeah, a little heat going on there. Yeah, I don't think I'd be wanting to pull 20 volts more than we can load it up a little bit more. Let's load it up about 7. That'll be about the same wattage we had before. 14.21 watts. The voltage is dropped to 20.22. We're still doing good. Looking at about 45 degrees C. So let's see what happens if we take it up to 1 amp. Okay, 1 amp voltage drops to 20.19. We're still doing good voltage wise. It's 20 watts. Let's see what happens temperature wise. Still about 45, 46 degrees in a few spots. I would think as long as it's got air cooling over it, it's not boxed up in something, you probably could get away with 20 watts out of this thing continuously, but I don't think I'd push it harder than that. So I just wanted to see what it could do. Turn the load off. I just want to see what it'd be able to do. And that gives me an idea. I mean, 20 watts is a lot of power to work with on most of your projects. Usually that'll get you taken care of. But it's interesting to know. The much easier to use. Don't have to solder any super small 201 resistors or anything. Somebody said, "Well, RJ, why didn't you just put it on that last one? Why didn't you just use a 0 ohm resistor?" I would have, but I don't work with parts that small, so I don't have them in the lab. I never design with that size components. It's just too hard to work with. It takes the fun out of it. You got to fight with everything. I don't build anything that needs to be that small. So I would suggest going with this. I'll put a link in the description of the video to this one. If you want a PD decoy, I would recommend this. The jumpers is so much easier to deal with. As far as 100 watts, yeah, it might do 100 watts for a couple seconds, but I don't think I'd want to be trying it. I do have saw wires, but they were never warming up. We just weren't flowing enough current, I think, to really cause enough drop. Maybe a little larger leads might have come out a little better, but looking at the temperature and stuff, I think 20, maybe 25 watts. 25 is probably pushing it. I'd keep it in the 20 watt or less range on this. So I'm going to call this video. Appreciate you tuning in and checking it out. Now we know what kind of loads these things can handle, and we've got a better one to use in the future for our projects. So hey, thanks a lot. Do me a favor, subscribe if you haven't, hit like if you want to, hit the notify bell if you want to catch my other videos. All of these things help out the channel. If you got questions or comments, feel free to send them. I enjoy comments, and all of these things help my channel grow. That algorithm's tough to put your channel out when you're small and fairly new channel. So anything you can do to help me is a big benefit. So thanks a lot. Catch you in the next video.